super excited to be here today. When I first initially asked for insights and feedback on what sort of topics people would want to hear about in the wider climate ecosystem, a big one was startup scene in the climate tech sector. What are the sort of emerging or hot startups coming out of the ecosystem? And so when I saw that, the first person I thought of was Sam at Energy Lab, and Energy Lab more broadly, because they do a lot of amazing work in the ecosystem, helping nurture the climate tech scene here in Sydney, but also nationally. And I believe you even have a bit of a footprint overseas as well, Sam, which I'll allow you to sort of elaborate on. And they've been doing this for some time as well. So Energy Lab has seen boom bust cycles and has definitely sort of been around the traps for a little while. So I'll hand over to you, Sam, to maybe introduce yourself, what you do at Energy Lab, and also just for the audience's perspective, keen to hear, what role does Energy Lab play in the wider climate tech ecosystem?
For sure. Hi, Alex. Firstly, thanks for having me, and it's really nice to see so many people on the call. Oh my gosh, this is many more than I thought. So I'm Sam Wood. I'm the Ops and Partnerships Manager at Energy Lab. We have quite a small team. So there's only about, I think, 9 of us now, plus Kirk from New Energy Nexus. So quite a small team, which means that my role of Ops and Partnerships is very much a broad one. And I mean that in the startup sense of my operations role is kind of that role where I catch all the things that no one else has time to do, which is quite fun. It means I get to jump in between all of our different programs, meet a bunch of the startups. And quite a key part of my role as well is running our showcase every year at All Energy. So that's me. In terms of Energy Lab itself, now, I think the first word that comes to mind is an accelerator, but we're a little bit more than that. So we like to call ourselves a climate tech support ecosystem or organization. And that's because we have 10 different programs now that span the entire startup growth cycle, from ideation to, traipsing that valley of death to, pre-seed, seed, growth stages, and we've got an international expansion program. Alex, you alluded to us having an international footprint. We wish we did, but we do have a very close international partner called New Energy Nexus, who we partner with for quite a few things, including our Supercharge Australia program and that international boot camp. Did you want me to go a little bit more into depth in the programs, or we can get to that later?
Yeah, super keen to hear about the programs, and I think like what stood out for me for Energy Lab is, as you mentioned, you've got programs across the whole, life cycle. Keen to maybe better understand what that life cycle, looks like, and also keen to hear, which organizations have gone through different phases, and how have you supported them to get to their sort of next milestones?
Yeah, that is a great question. So we've only been running our full portfolio of programs for, I was going to say 2 years, but I think it's a bit longer than that now. So we've been around since 2017. Our flagship accelerator has been around since 2017 as well. We really started running this we've also had our ideation program, YSEF, so that's Women in Climate and Energy Fellowship. That's aimed at women that would like to launch or start a startup in climate tech. We've been running that since 2019. And we've also run several different variations of pre-seed programs and ideation programs across the years, which really led us to this full portfolio that we have today. We've kind of tested and trialed things and seen what's worked and seen what hasn't. And we are still doing that day to day as well. So in terms of examples of startups that have gone through multiple, we had a really great one. So Kate Osaze she's founded a startup called Reswitch. So she came through our YSEF program. I'm going to misquote the year, so I won't say the year, but it was one of our earlier iterations. She joined our Charge program year before last, and then quickly was pulled into our Scale Up program, which works with energy retailers and distributors just after that. So she's a fantastic example of a startup that's gone through multiple programs. We also have InfraVision. They've been through both our Accelerator and Scale Up program as well. We had a couple programs in the Accelerator, sorry, a couple startups in the Accelerator last year that had originated from Charge, so Infigo Lab and Brownie. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I missed off on that question, probably.
No, not at all. And I know you were quite close to putting together the report, Decarb Debrief, which I think sort of documented some of the impact that Energy Lab has made in the wider ecosystem. Would you be happy sort of maybe sharing what your key takeaways were from that report, just to give the audience, I guess, a little bit of a sense of like the scale of the impact Energy Lab is making in the wider ecosystem and the progress that is happening in terms of the development of our climate tech ecosystem and perhaps the direction that it's going in?
Yeah, for sure. So that was quite a fun report to put together. So it's only the second year we've done this. And I want to make it very clear, this data just focuses on Energy Lab alumni and our specific program. So it's quite hard to take the data and look at the ecosystem as a whole, because we do have a specific energy focus, even though we do also branch out into other areas of climate tech. But a large percentage of our startups are energy, because that is one of our strength areas. But in terms of great things to notice in there, so it was really cool to see that we'd moved, our number of programs up. So now this year will be the first year that we're running those 10 different programs. I don't think any of us realized how many startups we had actually supported in 2024 until we put the numbers together, and it came out at 85. And that number doesn't count double ups. That number doesn't count the startups that have, participated in multiple programs, which was great. We made 346 individual mentor connections and 365 individual introductions to investors. And then on top of that, you can start looking at the funding numbers and the grant numbers. And it's clear that, our alumni are really creating some tangible impact. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the report on the left side to pull some numbers. The funding numbers were really impressive. So in 2024, Nera raised 45 million, Amber Electric raised 29, Allegro raised 17.5, gosh, I had a couple extra numbers for that one, and NRN raised 15.76 across several different raises. So the alumni are doing some really amazing things. And I think one big takeaway that I didn't take from the Decarb Debrief, but the State of Australian Startup Funding Report came out, and that listed that there was 609 million raised by climate tech startups in Australia. When we took our Energy Lab numbers, we realized that Energy Lab alumni had raised 25% of that, which I think, I thought it was a nice number.
That's a pretty high number. I'm definitely impressed. And you mentioned some, great names there, Allegro Energy, NRN. I came to better understand a little bit, what these companies do, and also keen to understand from your perspective, Sam, why you think they've been successful and why they've been successful in I guess their raises, but also obviously, meeting a market need and finding product market fit. So yeah, just keen to better understand, I guess, underneath the hood, the startups that are succeeding in the climate tech ecosystem and what differentiates them from, the ones that maybe don't.
That is a great question. And look, there are people very much more well-positioned than I am to answer that. But look, let me give it a crack. Really, those startups that we see succeeding, they've got not like their product itself, they're always standalone, they're always incredible, they're always generally like quite innovative, either business models or technologies, but they're also very commercially viable. And I think, not to bring politics into this too much, but given what we're seeing in the world at the moment and the harder environment that, I think some startups are having to operate in, that commercial viability and that cost saving is going to be crucial to pave the way forward. Yeah. Sorry, I'm distracted by the chat box.
No. There will be time. There will be time for questions, Richard. Yeah, for sure. And could you maybe expand a little bit on like those successful startups you mentioned, like what they actually do and what sort of sectors they're in and what their sort of solution is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the biggest learning I took when I started at Energy Lab is climate tech is huge. And it's quite hard to encapsulate climate tech in one thing because there are so many different verticals. But a lot of the ones that we are seeing success in are the ones working with grid and energy companies and utilities. Now, our view on that is a little biased because we do work with retailers and distributors as well. So that when I say biased, I mean that's what I'm seeing. But for instance, Allegro Energy unveiled their test trial at the Earing Power site the other week. So they do a redox flow battery, which is an alternative tech to lithium batteries for large volume storage. So that's that's over 8 hours duration. So they unveiled their locally manufactured micro emulsion flow battery, which is pretty amazing. And they're doing that with Origin. Another startup I might quickly point out, Dovetail Electric Aviation. So they're finding some good success. They basically retrofit small planes with sorry, I'm going to muck this tech up, but it's a they showcased their hydrogen electric power plant prototype in Spain recently, and also unveiled Dove Power, which is an electric propulsion system at Avalon Air Show in Australia. So they've got some pretty innovative tech coming through.
Yeah, that's really cool. I recently did a bit of a deep dive on Allegro Energy and was sort of blown away by the tech that they have developed in-house. And I guess it just sort of like exemplified to me the fact that like Australia actually does innovation really well. But it's that commercialization aspect that perhaps globally on the global stage we don't do so well historically. So I guess it's really encouraging to hear some of the numbers that Energy Lab is helping put together for the wider ecosystem, but also providing that support, because I think we can do that innovation really well. It's just then taking that next step to commercialize. And I guess as you're taking that next step to commercialize, obviously you need to start hiring, you need to start finding a team. You need to start building out your offering. I'm sure a lot of people on this call today are interested, Sam, from your perspective. What do you find are the typical sort of first hires or second hires as startups transition into that maybe scale up phase or get that first or second round of funding that enables them to start building that team out?
Yeah, look, a startup is a small business. They need everything. Founders often come in with very different sets of skills. So you never know what it is that you've got that a founder might need or find useful, especially when they hit that scale up stage. They're going to need everything. They're going to need sales. They're going to need ops. You really can transition into a startup with so many different varied skill sets. I think the biggest thing is if you're transitioning from corporate, be prepared for a little bit of chaos, be prepared for a little bit of mess, and just like get ready to roll your sleeves up and muck in. But it's fun. You're going to be working on the forefront of the next round of what's to come. I think there's every opportunity there.
Yeah, 100%. And for the audience's perspective as well, Sam, like how can, if I'm not like a startup founder, if I don't necessarily have a background in startups, or if I'm like relatively new to the climate space, how can I get involved in Energy Lab's ecosystem and what does that look like? Yeah,
you would be surprised at the amount of varied skill sets we need in our mentor network, Like, yes, you need engineers, we need technical people, we need researchers, we need scientists, but we also need the accountants, we also need the lawyers, we also need the operations specialists, we need the HR specialists. Like, startups need everything. So come and join our mentor system. You can look at angel investing. We've got an angel investment platform. If you're a sophisticated investor, you can jump into our accelerator fund as well. There are so many ways to get involved.
Yeah, that mentorship, offering you have, and I know you're always actively looking for mentors with different sort of expertise. What does that look like? Is it just signing up online? How does that work?
Yeah, so we operate a very light touch mentorship platform. You can get involved as much as you would like to. So you jump on our website, you chuck in an application via our mentor form. A little bit later, one of my colleagues, Tim, who runs our mentor platform, will tap you on the shoulder. You'll have a 15-minute chat with him. He'll get you all set up. And then once a month, you get an email from us and it says, hey, we've got all these amazing mentor opportunities and we've got startups that are looking for help in this, 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 and this. And you can engage with those opportunities as much as you'd like. Or every now and then we'll pop up one of our programs might be running like a mentor speed dating round. So you can opt to jump in for one of them and you'll meet a number of different startups in 15 to 20 minute periods across a block of time. And as I said, we need everyone and everything.
Yeah, and I've definitely referred a few people onto that, and I think it's always a good thing to put on the CV, as well as just develop your understanding of what's happening, getting that monthly email. If you get to the privilege of being a mentor for a startup, then you actually get to go deep in learning about that vertical and the core challenges that they're trying to take on. So definitely recommend everyone to jump into that mentorship network and apply. I've just put it in the chat. I guess right now we probably have some time for questions if people wanted to ask some questions. I think Richard, you maybe wanted to ask a question if you wanted to jump in, or otherwise please just feel free to put your hand up and we can go through them. Did you have a question to kick us off, Richard?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
You're a little bit faint.
Is that better?
That's better, yeah.
So no, I'm interested in the very, very top of pipe that you have, Sam, because this is all relatively new to me. So I've only been kicking around the sort of startup space for the last probably 3-4 months. And I'm amazed by the people that I've met. Every one of them deserves a huge amount of plaudits just simply for giving it a crack, right? And I've met plenty of folks who I think, wow, what they're doing looks amazing. There's definitely huge potential there. But I've also met over the last few months a bunch of people where what I've wanted to say to them at various points has been like, look, honestly, just go get a job. There's so much naivety in the way that you're sort of approaching this, and what you're trying to do has been being done a million times by other people, and like you're just barking up the wrong tree. How do you at Energy Lab, how do you do that? How do you kind of filter out the kind of, look, this is great and I really admire your enthusiasm, but honestly, this is a non-starter? What do you guys do to kind of gently kind of not let down those people or redirect those people? Because maybe in some cases they're fixable, maybe in some cases they're not. I'd be really interested to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what an ideation program's for, really, I think. And I think that's also what those early stage programs are really there for, because being honest, like for the pipeline, we need all those people having a crack. And, as you said, some of them will be able to pivot. They've come into I think most of the time people start a startup because they see a problem and they go, shoot, I really think I can fix that. So, it's taking them through that process of, okay, like, can we validate this? What does this look like? What does product market fit look like? Can we pivot if we don't necessarily find that? And I think, you said you joined a mentor speed network yesterday, but having mentors with different varied expertise is such a big part of that as well, because we don't have all the answers. Gosh, no. And I will never claim that. But it's connecting those startups to people that really has that power, and also enabling them with the tools to go like, hey, okay, how do I run that? How do I do that validation? How do I check that before you send them out? I hope that helped answer it.
We've got another question. If you raise your hand, if you want to just shoot away. So it says FZ.
Hey Sam, thanks Alex. Hey Sam, I'm Frida. Nice to meet you. I might have joined a bit later, so you might have already covered this. But I've been in the private sector, specifically consulting, for 10 years. Your topic around commercialization is very interesting to me because through clients, etc., we work with the government, the universities, the academics, and I personally had an entrepreneurial background when I was in the States as well. So in Australia specifically, what have you seen has been like one driving factor to make commercialization better? It's like if we were to really invest like the effort to change one thing about the current ecosystem, what would that thing be to make the commercialization process better?
Ooh, good question. Any one thing?
Yeah, from your experience, yeah, really interested. Yeah.
We have so many amazing innovators in Australia and people working in startups. I think something that would make a really tangible change is a shift in corporate culture towards startups and innovation. I think we're a brilliant country. I think we have so much. I think we have a really good wealth of knowledge here, but I don't necessarily think we're very good at then getting it into companies and rolling it out. Yeah.
So
Sorry, you go, Frida.
I was just gonna recap. Basically, it's the partnership with the private sector could really support the commercialization, and the culture is the biggest, from your perspective, driving factors. That's the challenge in the moment.
I would think so. Yeah.
Does that look like sort of getting the commercials, the corporate sector to get buy-in for like helping get pilot projects off the ground with innovations that are happening? I think you mentioned Allegro has a pilot project. Was it with Origin or
Origin? Yeah.
What does that pilot project look like, and what were the success factors that if you know that made that happen?
I probably couldn't answer that one for you. You might need to chat with Thomas Nahn himself. Yeah, but I do think large corporates being more open to working with startups would create a significant difference.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Lauren's raised her hand, and I think Joseph's also put a question in the comments, but we'll go to you, Lauren, to ask your question.
Sure. Well, not really a question as much, but maybe just a lead on from that conversation just having with Frida about the corporates, because I worked at Deloitte as well, but in the UK, I know Frida also worked at Deloitte, but working in that venture space. So I worked in the strategy sustainability team there, but I also worked very closely with the venture studio and really trying to bring sort of those partnerships we were making into the corporate structures with clients. But I think the key challenge there that I was always finding was, people are really open to those conversations initially, but when it comes to like those deadlines and, the tight turnarounds, particularly in that first phase of like strategy in the 6 to 12 weeks, it's like, well, how are we going to have that time to, really, is it really critical in this phase? How much is that going to cost extra for the client? Is it the right time to bring that person in? And I always found it was sometimes an internal blocker with like stakeholders being in such a large corporate when the right time isn't, if it's going to really hinder that conversation or that project you're having with the client, or is really going to accelerate it, because it's all about sort of like what the client's perception is as well, if they'll want to then go on to the next phase of sell on work. And I found that really challenging, and something why I actually want to move out of consulting with the startup side myself. But I just thought it was more of a thought or an observation on that, of what the challenges I've found internally.
That's fantastic. That's such a good observation. I'm going to be totally honest. I haven't worked in a large corporate. I think the largest company I've worked at was 120 people. So for me, hearing those insights, I'm like, yes, I want more of them.
Well, I'm happy to speak to you more. So I feel like I've not replied to your LinkedIn message as well, I just realized. So I'll chat to you after.
I think it's a case as well as like highlighting which corporates are those ones that maybe have that risk appetite, that are looking to invest, that are looking to set up new infrastructure. For example, AGL, although they, have a lot of old dirty assets, they are investing in new infrastructure. They've just set up the Hunter Energy Hub. They've, brokered a lot of partnerships and agreements, and are helping commercialize a lot of tech in that area. So like, I guess it's just looking at, which companies have that risk appetite, and, beginning to make the business case around how that's going to succeed. Because I think, once those market leaders make those first moves, hopefully that breeds more cooperation and willingness to jump in the wider market. But yeah, really appreciate your insights, Lauren. Joseph had a question, Sam. I don't know if you've seen this. Is there also some uniqueness with local economics and market that becomes a barrier to scalability as organizations are looking to go global?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Sorry, it really got me thinking there. Nothing that I can think of straight off the top of my head. I do tend to think that Australia, we do have a little bit, because it can be hard to be quite successful in a startup here. I feel like if you can do it well here, you will take off overseas. Yeah, sorry, that's all I've really got on that one.
The only thing I'd add to that is I know that like the Australian government has a lot of like launching pads to different innovation ecosystems. Like they've got one in San Francisco, London, Singapore. So I guess, they're in place to provide that structure and support to begin to navigate different markets and the uniqueness that would come over there. Joseph, I saw you raised your hand. Did you want to actually ask a question to Sam?
Oh, no, I was just reacting. I was trying to react, but anyway. But yes, thank you very much for addressing my question.
Perfect.
No worries. Well,
quick side note, Alex.
Yeah, go for it.
I know I did say that like more corporates leaning more into innovation would be a big booster for the ecosystem. I do want to point out that we do have some corporates really leaning into it, like you pointed out, AGL, Endeavour Energy, and more. So we do have corporates leading the way. It's not all doom and gloom.
No, totally. But I definitely think like we need to do a better job of, sharing and speaking about those corporates that are taking that action to, hopefully beget more momentum in the wider ecosystem. So, I mean, it wasn't until I met AGL and talked to them and understood the level of their ambition that I was able to get more of an insight into what they're actually doing. So we do need to do a better job about sharing those stories, I think. We are at time, everyone. So unless there are any other burning questions, I might call it there. So Sam, thank you so much for your time and giving us a little bit of a insight into the startup ecosystem and how it runs. And looking forward to following along with Energy Lab, and hopefully you just got another sort of 15 mentors to sign up to your network. So
that would be wonderful.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you all so much. And Alex, thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys. A pleasure. There will be a